Hey, I'm Brian from BrianKeaneFitness.com, qualified personal trainer and nutritionist. Do you struggle with bloating? Here are 5 tips to help you beat the bloat. Before we jump into the 5 tips on how to beat the bloat, I need to break down a misconception first. And this may sound like a very obvious thing to some of you and not so obvious to others, so bear with me. Beating the bloat and reducing your amount of bloating is not the same as reducing body fat or losing weight. And some people confuse the two. Beating bloating is normally dietary or lifestyle changes that you make in order to remove that uncomfortable feeling where your stomach feels all swollen. Losing body fat and losing weight, on the other hand, are completely different. Losing weight is reducing numbers on a scale. Losing body fat is reducing the amount of fat in your body. So don't confuse those two things. So there are much more qualified gut experts out there to speak on this particular topic. But when it comes to the difference between reducing body fat and bloating, I like to think of bloating like a feeling. It's when your stomach feels swollen and you feel uncomfortable. Body fat, on the other hand, is how you look and the amount of fat that's on your body. In today's video, we're going to break down that feeling and how to potentially help beat the bloat. Number 1, increase your fiber gradually. One of the biggest mistakes people will make when they start a new weight loss, fat loss, or health journey is that they'll massively increase their fiber intake, and this leads to an increase in bloating. You've increased the amount of fruits and vegetables you're eating, or the complex carbohydrates, all potentially really good foods to include in a plan when you're looking for sustainable fat loss. However, it comes with a downside. Those foods are very high in fiber, which generally lends itself to an increase in bloating. So if you've gone from a very low fiber diet to a high fiber diet, you're going to feel that in your stomach. So what's the answer? Gradually increase your fiber intake. And you don't have to do any calculations. Different people have different dietary fiber intakes, the same as everything. Different people have different caloric intakes, different sleep requirements, and fiber is no different. So you have to experiment and find your sweet spot. And the sweet spot is that you feel regular when you go to the toilet, but you don't feel bloated and swollen all day long. You're looking for that in between. So if you've recently increased the amount of fiber you're eating, just scale it back a little bit and then experiment until you find your sweet spot where you've got all the pros. Feel regular and no bloating. Point number 2 on how to beat the bloat. Reduce the amount of carbonated drinks or soda that you're drinking and replace it with water. This one's quite straightforward. If you're drinking a lot of carbonated drinks, soda, diet drinks, etc., you're going to feel that gas in your stomach, which is going to bloat you. And it's very easy to fix. Switch to water. Or alternatively, reduce back the amount of soda or carbonated drinks you're drinking until you find your sweet spot where you don't feel bloated after consuming it. You'd be shocked by how many people I've worked with over the years who've reduced their bloating by making this one simple change. Number 3, get more active throughout the day. Again, this one's going to sound really obvious, but if you're sitting down after a meal, you're going to find that your digestion feels a little bit more sluggish than normal. If you've ever had a massive meal at Christmas dinner, something I'll get back to later, you know that your meal just feels like it's sitting in your stomach. If you go for a walk or a light jog, it feels like it's going to move all the way through. So if you're feeling bloated, try moving more throughout the day. That might be hitting a 10,000 a day step count, that might be working out, or that might be just going for a brisk walk after you've eaten a major meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Again, very easy one to fix by just moving more, assuming you're making good food choices, which I'll get on to next. Number 4 for beating the bloat, look at your food choices. So this kind of ties in a little bit with point 1, where you have an increase in fiber. But also if you have any intolerances and eating foods that don't agree with your system or agree with your body, you're going to find that you're bloating a lot more. And this is a little bit of a Pandora's box when it comes to food experimentation. But some of the obvious triggers for people are going to be milk products, gluten, wheat in general. Some of these foods can cause problems for people. And if you're consuming them regularly, you're going to find that you're bloated a lot. So you either need to experiment and decrease back those foods until you find your sweet spot, or you need to eliminate them and remove them completely. On top of that then, look at your salt intake. If you're eating foods that have a lot of salt or a lot of sodium, or you're adding a lot of salt to your meals, you're going to feel bloated. Salt pulls water into your body and make you feel bloated. So look at your food choices. Again, this may sound really obvious, but if you're intolerant to a food, or worse, allergic to a food, remove it from your plan, or at least greatly reduce it and see if that food is causing an issue. And if you're consuming too much salt, scale back on it a little bit. Number 5, eat at regular intervals. Now, funnily enough, the opposite end of the spectrum also works. Intermittent fasting. The problem with fasting and bloating is if you end up overeating at that first meal, it causes a whole host of problems when it comes to bloat. However, if you're someone that's in a very controlled fast, where you're fasting for multiple hours during the day, and then you have a good controlled portion-sized meal at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m., that's also going to help your bloating. Just gives your digestive system a little bit of a break. However, my personal preference is to eat at regular intervals. So your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, with maybe a couple of snacks in between. If you're eating at regular intervals, it normally means that you're not eating massive meals as well, which can support your bloating. Of course, other things are going to help you, like digestive enzymes potentially, or a probiotic, but you always want to go down the supplement route last. Look at your nutrition first, and then add any supplements that might potentially support that. So eating at regular intervals, every 2.5 or 3 hours or so can massively support your daily bloating. But experiment and find what works best for you. So if you're someone that struggles with bloating, hopefully one or all of these tips will help you with your journey going forward. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for videos coming each and every week.